There are no rules here. That's why everyone knows what the rules are. The math that built the world. The edge of the math. A player who was never in the code. 3 quiet things about Minecraft. 3 things the world has been carrying around for 15 years. And tonight, there is one more. Tonight, there is a place where all of those things stopped being quiet, and the world started being loud. Tonight, we walk to the loudest place in Minecraft. If this is your first visit, take a moment to subscribe. There's always a place for you at the fire. There are no rules here. That's why everyone knows what the rules are. The server is called 2B2T. It was founded in December 2010 by a player who went by the name Hausemaster. Hausemaster had built a small house on a previous world, 2 billion blocks out from spawn. He had been building the house for a while. The first version did not survive. The second version did. The name of the server is a coordinate, and the coordinate is a place, and the place is a house. The server started as a private server shared among a small group of friends. It became public within months. The world inside the server has been the same world ever since. Nothing has been reset. Nothing has been wiped. The first blocks placed in 2010 are still in the world. The name 2B2T is a coordinate, 2 billion blocks out from world spawn. The 2B is the distance. The 2T is sometimes read as the second attempt at the house, sometimes as a shorthand for 2, sometimes as a shorthand for terrain. The name is not a brand. The name is a place. The name tells you where the server is. The server is 2 billion blocks out, in a world where the only way to reach something is to walk a long way, and the only way to know what is there is to have been told by someone who walked before. The original house is still in the world. The house has been rebuilt many times. The house has been griefed many times. Players make pilgrimages to it. The queue. As the server grew in 2011, a queue system was introduced. New players are placed in a queue and admitted in order, in batches, as the server has capacity to take them. The queue has, at peak times, held tens of thousands of players. Queue times have ranged from minutes on a quiet day to hours on a busy one to entire days at the worst peaks of 2016 and 2017. The queue is the first thing a new player sees. The queue is the threshold. The queue is, for many players, the longest single experience of the server. A player who waits 8 hours in the queue and then dies within an hour of entering the world has still spent 9 hours in 2B2T. The queue counts. The queue is not a punishment. The queue is a place. Players waiting in the queue have built, over the years, mini-games, role-play servers, trading posts, small villages, and inside jokes. The queue has its own culture, its own etiquette, its own end phrases. The first generation of 2B2T players spent hours in the queue before they ever set foot in the world. The queue is where the community is tested first. The queue is where a new player learns whether they have the patience for the world on the other side. The first thing the community built was not a base. The first thing the community built was the community. The queue was the workshop. The 2B2T Renaissance, 2012 to 2014. The first generation of long-term players built during this period. The community uses the phrase Renaissance without irony. The buildings from this period are not ironical. The most famous builder of the era was a player called Fit. Fit built castles. Fit built walls. Fit built monuments at extreme distances from spawn. where the only way to reach them was a long walk across a flat world. The buildings are documented on the 2B2T Wiki, in videos, in screenshots, in the memory of the players who walked to them. The buildings are still in the world, in their original form or in their griefed form. Either form, the buildings are still there. Either form counts. Fit's most famous build is a castle, whose outer walls stretch, by community measurement, for hundreds of thousands of blocks. The castle is not a monument in the conventional sense. A monument is something built to be seen. Fit's castle is something built to be walked to. The castle is at extreme distance from spawn. The walk to the castle is a day of real time. The castle is at the end of the walk. The castle is, in part, the walk. The castle was built in part because the castle was difficult to build. The castle was a statement. The statement was not a slogan. The statement was, I was here. I walked a long way to be here. I stayed long enough to leave something behind. The griefers. As the server grew, the practice of griefing grew with it. Griefing is the deliberate destruction of other players' builds. Griefing is not against any rule because there are no rules. Griefing is not banned because nothing is banned. Griefing is a strategy in the absence of any authority. The most famous griefer of this period was a player called Pop Bob. Pop Bob became known for finding major bases within hours of their construction. Pop Bob did not build. Pop Bob did not need to build. Pop Bob's work was the absence of other people's work. Pop Bob's work was a hole in the world where someone else's wall had been. The hole was the message. The hole was the trade. 2B2T became, in practice, both a building game and a war game. The community developed hidden bases, trap designs, safe box conventions, and shared grief warnings distributed through the queue, through r/2B2T, and through private group chats. The griefers developed counter techniques, faster movement hacks, better ways to find bases, better ways to bypass traps. The two practices shaped each other. The builders built better walls because the griefers were better griefers. The griefers became more patient because the builders became more careful. The community became, in the absence of any moderation, its own arms race. The arms race was not a flaw. The arms race was the only thing the server had. The arms race was the server's only institution. Bedrock Map. A community project to document the entire surface of 2B2T by walking, by boat, by elytra, and stitching the result together into a single image. The map is built on the world's bedrock layer, the unbreakable foundation of every Minecraft world, normally inaccessible, normally invisible. On 2B2T, the community made the bedrock layer their canvas. The map is the only known complete map of a no-reset Anarchy server of this age. The map has been used to locate abandoned bases from 2012, ancient grief sites from 2015, the original Hausemaster house, and small personal shrines left by players who have since left the server. The map is the community's memory. The memory is the only archive the server has. The world has no rules written anywhere. The world has no admin signs, no spawn protection, no claim blocks, no permission systems. The world is, in code, a default Minecraft world with no modifications. The world has, in 15 years, accumulated a system of shared conventions: where to walk, where not to walk, what to build, what not to build, who to trust, who not to trust, which griefers to avoid, which builders to approach, which signs to leave, which signs to read. The world has become, in the absence of rules, a place that everyone can read. The reading is the rule. The reading is the only rule the world has ever had. There are no rules here. That's why everyone knows what the rules are. The 2B2T Reborn, 2021 onward. A second wave of players arrived after 2021, many of them coming from YouTube documentaries about the server, many of them coming from Reddit threads, many of them coming from word of mouth. The community calls this the Reborn era. The name is not accidental. The new players built new bases. The new players started new groups. The new players continued the same cycle of building and griefing that the first generation had run a decade before. The server's player count after the Reborn era has been the highest of its history. The world is fuller than the world has ever been. The world is louder than the world has ever been. The world is, in many places, exactly the same. The new generation learned from the old generation. The Reborn players read the 2B2T Wiki. The Reborn players watched the YouTube documentaries. The Reborn players asked the veterans in the queue and on r/2B2T what was where, who was who, which griefers to avoid, which builders to approach. The veterans answered. The veterans taught the new players the conventions, the grief warnings, the queue culture, the walking paths, the safe corridors, the dangerous corridors. The conventions that the first generation had invented, the second generation inherited. The transmission was, in the absence of any authority, the only school the server had. The school had no walls. The school had no teachers. The school had players, on a long walk, telling each other what to do. The walk from spawn, a common 2B2T experience. The endgame journey from the world spawn point to a destination, a base, a community landmark, a friend's place, the original 2B2T house, the bedrock map's edge, the far edge of any given continent. The walk can take hours of real time. Some players walk it once, early in their time on the server, and never walk it again. Some players walk it many times, in different directions, at different stages of their time on the server. Some players never finish it. They are killed on the road, or griefed, or lost, or simply turn back. The walk is, in the community's own language, a rite of passage. The walk is the server's quietest tradition. The walk is the part no one can grief, because the walk is just a walk. The Pilgrims. Players who walk to the original 2B2T house. The house is, in modern 2B2T, in a state of half ruin. Griefed many times, rebuilt many times, never quite the same house, never quite the same coordinates, never quite the same version of the original. The Pilgrims walk anyway. The Pilgrims take screenshots. The Pilgrims leave signs. The signs are written in English, in the conventions of the game, in the conventions of the community. The signs say things like, "I walked from spawn," and "Thanks, Fit," and "The world remembers." The signs are not in any language the game understands. The signs are in the language the community understands, which is the language of having walked a long way to be somewhere. The walk is the point. The arrival is the part that does not matter. The thesis. A community, given no rules, no resets, and no moderation, will invent its own governance. The conventional reading of Anarchy is that it is chaos, that without a ruler, things fall apart. The 2B2T record suggests the opposite. Without a ruler, things get organized differently. The community developed shared maps, shared grief warnings, shared base design conventions, shared trading conventions, shared queue culture, and a shared history. The community built the only institutions the server has, because the server provides none. The institutions are not in code. The institutions are in the players. The institutions are the players. The community is the only institution 2B2T has ever had. The community is the only rule. Not in the sense of a community that has agreed on a written code, in the sense of a community that, in the absence of any written code, has become the code. The first-generation players taught the second-generation players. The builders taught the new builders. The griefers taught everyone. The map makers taught the new map makers. The convention makers taught the new convention makers. The school has no walls. The school has no teachers. The school has no graduation. The school is the community, in the world, on the walk, for 15 years. The school is the only school the server has. The school is the only school the server needs. The legacy. The world is the same world. The conventions are the same conventions. The community is the same community, refilled with new members every few years, walked over by new feet, rebuilt in new corners, griefed in new places. The grief is the same grief. The builds are the same builds. The walk is the same walk. The 2B2T that the original 2010 players walked is the 2B2T that the 2026 players walk. The world does not forget. The world does not resent. The world is, in the absence of any authority, a record of itself. The record is the only archive the server has. The record is the only archive the server will ever have. There are no rules here. That's why everyone knows what the rules are. 15 years. A world that has not been reset. A community that has not been given any reason to stay, and has stayed. A server with no moderation, no admins in the conventional sense, no map resets, no claim blocks, no permissions. A server where the only governance is the governance the community has invented, on long walks, in the queue, on r/2b2t, in the quiet conventions that everyone has agreed to without ever signing anything. Anarchy does not mean chaos. Anarchy means the community becomes the only rule. The community has been the only rule for 15 years. The rule has held. If this episode helped you see your Minecraft world a little differently, subscribe. There's always a place for you at the fire. And in the next episode is the deepest place in the game, a biome the developers built and then didn't want anyone to find.